And we're live. Hey, man.
Hi there. I kind of feel like I should be listening for the intro music on the Use program still, staring into the camera with the lights on me. But, we haven't got any. We could always
No,
cue some
no.
up, but that would just my cheesy instincts coming in.
Add that later.
Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome to another Sunday morning session here for our e-commerce leader podcast. So we're broadcasting this into several of our groups and YouTube channels and the like. So if you're jumping in with us here as we start the recordings, welcome. And we'd love to have you say hello, leave a comment underneath the video, wherever you're watching it. Let us know where you're watching from. Give us a like, love, comment, ask questions. We're going to have a great session today. We'll kick off the formal recording in just a couple minutes. So we'll just let people pop in here. And I'd love to have everyone give us a little shout out and say hello in the comments. I assume things are well for you, sir, in London.
Yeah, it's actually been a sunny day, and for once had some time off with my wife, who's very busy now, back out playing music. So signs of life. So we went and had coffee with I believe the smartest business person I know, and I know a lot of smart business people, which is very very thought provoking.
Richard Branson,
not Richard Branson, nobody famous,
the
nobody
Queen of
really
England.
heard of. No, no, I don't know. She's a very good diplomat. I'm not sure she's a business person. This is not going the way I was expecting.
I'll keep guessing if you'd like.
You won't know him, and I'm not going to. I didn't get his permission to talk about him, but yeah, so I can't. He's the CEO of a pretty significant company, so I can't really mention him on air without permission. But yeah, very 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 thought provoking. Yeah, there's some smart people living in my area, and it happens that this friend of mine is one of them.
Yeah.
So
that's really really cool, man.
Yeah, I love talking about business. I do it on my time off as well. It's not just a marketing thing. It's a bit of an obsession. So
yeah. Well, fantastic. That's exciting. And so sounds like it was an amazing day in London. It's not an amazing day in Seattle. It's disgusting.
Well, I apologize.
It's all right. No, it's fine.
You choose to live in Seattle. You could be in Arizona or
right.
Southern California.
Exactly right. Yeah. Well, shall we get things going here?
Yeah, let's do
that.
Yes, we're providing zero value to anyone so far.
No, we're adding zero value to people's lives.
But we're going to add a ton of value in a minute. I'm convinced. I'm absolutely convinced.
Yeah, this is going to be a good conversation. Let's kick it off. We're going to talk all about e-commerce masterminds in today's session. So why don't you go ahead and just lead us into it, man?
Great. So today we're going to talk about masterminds, and I've got a lovely quote from the famous Napoleon Hill of Think and Grow Rich and other such books to kick us off here. So Napoleon Hill said this: "Here are some interesting facts about the mastermind which give you an idea of how important it is and how necessary that you embrace this principle and make use of it in attaining success in your chosen occupation. First of all, it is the principle through which you may borrow and use the education, the experience, the influence, and perhaps the capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life. It is the principle through which you can accomplish in 1 year more than you would accomplish without it in a lifetime if you depended entirely upon your own efforts for success." So, quite a major statement there. I've been running e-commerce masterminds since 2015. I know that Jason, you and Kyle have started really digging into the mastermind thing and loving it as part of your replens training work and so the winning on Shopify work. So we are, I guess, a bit biased about the value of masterminds, but I'm biased, I think, with a great reason. From my experience, both as a member of some super powerful masterminds and having seen the huge progress it's underpinned for my clients over the years, I'm a huge fan of the concept as a consumer as well as a mastermind grower. I've had clients grow to their first 7-figure years, and even one client gets a healthy 8-figure year, and they've attributed a good part of that success privately, where there's no pressure on, to being in the mastermind. So if you find the right group, if you commit to it, and if you use it intelligently, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to see big results for yourself as well. So today we're going to talk about how to find and use intelligently such a group.
Yeah, love it. Well, I'm thrilled with this idea and concept. You're right. We have started to get into it. Kyle and I started our coaching work 3 years ago, I guess, 3.5 years ago, with just one-on-one clients, and have had a lot of fun with it. But then in January, what we kind of organically got into like a mastermind group where we had all these amazing coaching clients, and they were all so just technically competent and amazing to work with. And we love our coaching clients. It was just an amazing group. And but I kept saying to them, hey, we have another coaching client that is really doing something interesting that you would probably really appreciate hearing about. And then I would have to ask them, hey, can I tell what you're doing here to another person? And then finally, Kyle and I were just like, we should just put these people together into a mastermind. They're already our coaching clients, and they would all love to know about each other and what they're doing, we think, because they kept saying, yeah, sure, you can share it. And so that's what we did. We started in January. So I guess we're like 6 months into it or whatever. And it's just been a really, really powerful next step for us on the journey with our clients and in their own businesses. And they've had great feedback and really enjoyed the sessions, and have learned from each other firsthand technical skills and just inspirational things. So it's just been really, really interesting to see it play out. So there you go. That's our foray into masterminds. You've been doing it much, much longer than we have, but
Yeah, I
hugely
realized today
powerful.
that I've been doing it in some form since 2015, and with sort of 6 and 7 figure sellers since 2017. So yeah, it's been a while now, and I guess it's grown out of as an obsession with group dynamics that's come from being a conductor and being part of groups for a long time. So I suppose I didn't even realize why it seemed important for a while. And then I realized that somehow making a group dynamic really buzz and hum was always a thing of mine. And it's now transferred into the commercial world. So I've got a question for you then. The mastermind is a very highly used term in marketing, including in the e-commerce space, not least Amazon, which is always full of the hypiest marketing, let's face it. But it's a term coined by Napoleon Hill, who I reference with, I think, a very specific meaning. So I've got my thoughts on what this word means, but how would you define the word mastermind? What does it mean to you, Jason?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I guess I haven't ever put too much thought into it. It seems to me almost self-explanatory, but you're right. It's probably not. We should define it. I consider myself in a mastermind group with one other person, actually, and then it grew to like 4 of us. So to me, it's certainly about a small group. I think you could just use the phrase "small group," and that's probably the sufficient. Oh, there's my dog barking. Sorry. That's probably the sufficient technical term, just a small group of like-minded or a similar, kind of interested people. And I'm a part of several groups that are not what I would consider a mastermind. So, for example, there's a group of local businessmen who get together for lunch every other Tuesday. And they're all older than me. I'm 50, but they're all in their 60s and 70s, and they all have big businesses. But it's honestly like it's just not. I don't consider it a mastermind because I don't extract any value from it. Not that I'm like trying to be selfish or anything, but it's just not. It doesn't feed me in any constructive way. So that's not a mastermind. And then like for our church, we have like home group we've been a part of where we're like all get together but it's not vocational in any way. So that's not a mastermind. So I think there's some interesting elements here where it's got to be on topic vocationally with the group of peers that you're willing to open up with. And it's got to be a small group, which I would think is probably, I don't know, 2 to 20 in that range. I don't know. Does
Interesting.
that
Yeah,
help define it in any way? I don't know
I
if
think
it
it
does.
does. I
But
think, I think what you've come to, and you've defined what it isn't. I think it's not a bunch of people in the same industry coming together for lunch. I mean, that's, by the way, a wonderful thing. It's what I did this morning.
yeah,
See people come together from a different industry for breakfast. But I think you're right. It isn't a huge group. I think it's defining what it isn't. I think it's not a class, and people sometimes call something a mastermind where they have a visiting, person speaking from the front, which could be very valuable. But I don't think that's a mastermind. I
right.
don't think it's group coaching either. And this is the subtle difference. I think if you've got a group of, like you've been running group coaching recently a lot, and if you've got somebody there teaching from the front and a bunch of people in the room, even if they're interacting with each other to a degree,
Yeah,
that's a very powerful thing. And I don't think that's a mastermind either. And I
right.
don't think it's just like a networking meeting either, which is a bit like a sort of breakfast club for business people or something.
Yeah,
I think you put your finger on the fact that a small group, a group of peers, and that you're willing to open up to each other. I think
yes.
that's kind of the key to the culture, if you like, of a mastermind. I mean, for me, I guess I'm prejudiced because I've been doing things in a certain way for a few years, so I kind of think that's the right way, and it's just one way. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think a small group, um, even if it's you can sign non-disclosure agreements all you like, but there has to be a basic trust,
Yes.
especially in a
Right.
hyper-competitive space like Amazon. And I think that really that for me that there are several practices, and we can talk about the exact ways to use it, and we should. But I think for me the key is that you have individual hot seats for each member where you get to talk about individuals' challenges, but then the group responds. And I think for me, that's the heart of a mastermind. There are other things you can do, but if the focus is on the mentor being the person with all the answers, which if it's the right mentor can be a wonderful thing. Again, I don't think that's a mastermind thing. That's like group coaching. So
Yeah.
I think those are the two elements for me that make a mastermind not just a small group, but a very particular kind of small group, which done the right way, in my experience, is really powerful.
Can I mention, just weaving thoughts together here, one piece that I just realized, I've never thought about it before. I just listened to a podcast I love, James Altucher's podcast, and he had a guest on, and they were talking. The guest, I think, is the editor of Entrepreneur Magazine or Inc. or something like that. But they were talking about how people usually describe themselves on a hero's journey kind of framework, and they said they usually describe themselves as, I started my journey and I succeeded. and they said what they leave out is the most important part of a hero's journey, which is, I started my journey, I encountered a huge problem or setback, and then I succeeded. And what they said is that piece in the middle, that second step, I encountered a hard problem and I had to overcome it. That piece is what we all appreciate learning about. It's what bonds us to people. And I guess what we're saying here is, my every other Tuesday local businessman's lunch is not a mastermind, because no one will reveal their problems. No one is willing to do a revelation of my current challenge. Like, hey guys, I can't meet payroll tomorrow. Or, hey guys, my building just got condemned, or, like, this is the real things.
Yes.
And so I think that's the element of a mastermind. I just am realizing this as we're processing it. That's really valuable, is that revelation of problem and the group brainstorming around solving problems together. Be really
That's
meaningful.
very interesting that you've identified that, because I guess I knew that we've got a good atmosphere and culture going in one of the masterminds I've run, and of course you've been one of the very, very few guests or the facilitators, in fact so far one, and that's by design. It's mostly about peer-to-peer work, and if somebody comes in as you did, you sort of facilitate discussion, but it's a bit of a different thing. It's a bit more like group coaching, and valuable that is too. But I think you put your finger on something that has happened organically, and I guess that it's a bit like I experienced in orchestra, and other people might experience in I know one Amazon seller is ex-Marine, and that is that kind of bonding that happens when you're under fire together, because when you're in one business together, you bond, and that's very powerful. But if you are the CEO or the owner manager, whatever you want to call it, you can't afford to discuss some stuff with your team that is a problem for your business. And then you're kind of on your own, and that having that place to bond with each other, you're right, it really does bond you, and it's got an emotional sort of uplift that is different from just intellectual input. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I guess I'm focused on intellectual sort of input, and by accident I'd also created something where people really bond with each other.
Interesting. Okay, so we're digging back on the layers underneath the ideas of mastermind small groups, and I think there's a lot of valuable content there. And I totally resonate with your point about saying, in the group, you have to be in a group that you can trust people, and the trustworthy people. They can't be your competitors. They can't be frenemies. You've got to have people who you can really honestly share. And so that in some ways it's helpful if they're not in your direct niche, or maybe not immediate industry, but because they are a little more removed and objective from your specific drama, and can speak into it with clarity and wisdom. So we've defined a good set of things that a mastermind is not. It's not a class, it's not group coaching, it's not just a networking event. But there's also, these online virtual mastermind groups, and they can get unwieldy. There's like mega mastermind groups that just get large. Like, there's like 400 people in a group or something like that. What are your thoughts on that kind of, if it goes in that direction in terms of the size or that kind of thing?
I'm a member of a similar thing myself at the moment, and it's very valuable. And I wouldn't call it a mastermind. I just
Yeah.
think it's important to be clear what labels and names can get confusing. So it's important to just know what the nature of something is rather than obsess about the word.
Hmm.
But I think that's just a different thing. It's a big sort of coaching group, and there's a lot of momentum there, and that's fine. But I've actually, in the middle of that, just created, for my own sake, not charging anyone for it, a little group of about 14 people, of whom about between 4 and 8, depending on who can turn up, meet every 2 weeks. And that is a mastermind because it's hot seat based and it's tiny and we all trust each other and know each other. So within a big group like that, you can actually have a mastermind. And I think that combination is super powerful. And by the way, not by coincidence that I'm going to be creating, well, I'm in the middle of creating some training for 6-figure sellers trying to get to 7 in the Amazon space, private label sellers, based on exactly that combination, because I think it is big, powerful. Where I think it falls down is calling something a mastermind when it's actually just big group coaching. That's a different beast. And I think it's good to be
Yeah.
clear about the difference for me personally.
Yeah. 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 And there's value in that. But you're right. It is a much broader concept, and it's but those can be valuable groups.
Yeah.
Uh, um,
I think why not do both? And I guess the answer is because
mhm.
it's harder to scale and it's harder work to run a good mastermind. There is an
Yeah.
art to it as much as a science. And
Yeah.
I guess a lot of people aren't geared to that. They're just geared to scale, scale, scale. Can I
Hmm.
sell lots of places in a group course? Can I sell lots of
Hmm.
digital versions of my course? And
Yeah.
I understand that, but I don't think it serves the members as well as a real mastermind. I think it's harder work to run, but it serves the members just much more. And I think
Yeah.
it's just more powerful. It's a different beast, in my opinion.
So let me ask you this: what do you think the best reasons to join a mastermind are?
I
Like,
think there's
what's the good
actually
reasons to do
surprisingly
it?
huge number of reasons. So if you don't do it, I don't think you get to see your business objectively. Now, using a coach can help with that. You may be missing downsides or dangers that you didn't even know exist. You don't know what you don't know. You may be missing a massive upside opportunity. For example, your business might be sellable, and you might not realize that until you see somebody else with a similar business preparing to sell, and you think, oh, I could do that. So some of these things will be solved by a coach, but I do think that really the biggest advantages are, as well as seeing your business objectively, seeing hidden dangers, seeing missing opportunities, and following through. That's all the stuff that a coach can help with. But the thing that a mastermind does that's unique, industry friendships, and to your point, very, very good point, you bond strongly with people. You really get to know and trust each other when you've really worked through some problems together over the period of months or even years. I've got people in my masterminds who've known each other for 3 years, and they really know each
Yeah.
other, and they're doing joint deals. One's
Yeah.
serving the other, and there's a lot of peer-to-peer stuff that happens. The other things, it's one thing to have top-down accountability, manager style with your coach, but it's another thing altogether to have positive peer pressure. You look across and go, I could do that. Why am I not doing that? And you go back to we had one guy in the mastermind, he would always go back and he brought his assistant to meetings sometimes, and she was always complaining, yeah, he goes,
Yeah.
comes back from our meetings, and then he has a list to do as long as his arm because he wants what everyone else has got. And that's huge. Similar, you can be inspired by other people doing things if you need uplifting. And
Hmm.
then perhaps most of all, there's a huge sort of learning net. There's often a spread of background expertise, for example, analytics in marketing, branding. We've had people with engineering backgrounds, so you can work with the product development. They often have a spread of experience in e-commerce, as you said, with different categories. There's lots of different external experts they've used. Some are better than others, good lawyers, bad lawyers, good accountants, bad accountants, software. And it's a place to share wins who actually get you as well, because your wife or husband probably doesn't know what you're talking about half the time. So those are
Yeah.
just a few of the real upsides that I don't think you can replicate with a big group, with a coach, anywhere else. This is what makes it magic.
I love that. A couple thoughts come to my mind as you share that, and I've talked about this movie before, so I apologize. I only have a few movies I really like, but the one of them that I really really like that is really interesting twist on this is The Edge with Alec Baldwin and who's the guy who? Oh man, I can't think of the name for a moment. The guy who is in Silence of the Lambs, the bad guy. What's his name?
Oh, Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, yes, yes. Anthony
Oh,
Hopkins.
one
Okay.
of our
So,
famous exports. Yeah.
yes. So, yeah, there you go. So, it's him and Alec Baldwin, and they're out in the wilderness together in Alaska. The whole scene is set up so that they have to survive. And they have this huge bear chasing them, and it's going to kill them. And they don't know how to kill it. And they Anthony Hopkins looks on the matchbook cover, like a little box matches, and it's a old-fashioned picture of two Native Americans, native peoples, and they're holding pikes, and a big bear is like about to kill them, but they have these big spears. And he gets this idea: we could kill this thing with these big poles, like these native guys did in this matchbook cover. So he gets, like, in essence, he's in this mastermind group through a matchbook cover with Alec Baldwin, who's an idiot in the movie. He's like not helpful at all. And then these guys who have greater wisdom than he does, and they're not even there present with him. And so then, of course, they go through the process of trying to figure out how to, confront the bear. And I love that movie. It's a fantastic movie. You should go watch it if you haven't. And it speaks to this whole idea of having the both insight but also encouragement from peers. And you know how we are, like, as business people, we all do this in our personal life and business life. We make reasons why we can't do something. Like, here's an example. Oh, text SMS marketing. Oh, too complicated. I can't do that. I don't have any phone numbers in my system, or whatever. Oh, contest. Oh, no, that's too hard. Oh, email marketing. No, I it's too expensive. I don't have time. Oh, blogging. No, I'm not a good writer. We make all of these initial, like, no, kind of reasons why we don't want to do something. And a really good mastermind, just by the presentation of other people saying, man, I just crushed it with whatever it is, it strips back that mental, like, defense mechanism that you put in place, and it makes you realize, oh, I put that excuse in place because I was protecting myself from new work, different work, having a beginner mind, doing something I haven't done before. But in truth, here's another person that's just like me. They're not any smarter than me. Their business is similar to mine, and they just did it, and they told me it only took like 30 minutes. Now, what's my excuse?
It's huge. And here's the thing I would just say, in terms of, if you like, this sort of psychological model behind this, and again, I haven't really kind of quite articulated this. This is why conversation, to the point of coaches or masterminds, is always revealing, which is this. The model that a coach or a consultant or even mentor, let alone guru, if you're on a spectrum towards, parking a brain at the door, implies is a father or possibly mother figure. And that's how we learn when we're small children. But my understanding, and I'm not an expert with teenagers, I've done enough teaching of different ages of music over the decades to know that to influence a teenager, you need to get their peers on board, and if they see their peers doing it, they will just do it. And if their mum or dad says it, when you're 6, your dad's some godlike figure. When you're 16, your dad, does it, or your mum does it. That's the last thing you're going to do. And there is something of that dynamic, I think, in particularly entrepreneurs sometimes get a bit like strawberry teenagers. They're very willful. They are very kind of brilliant, but also just kind of sometimes the last thing they're going to do is the normal stuff that you should do. And the idea of should is a very kind of parental idea, I think, whereas seeing what somebody else is doing, like, I could do that, and then you get that sibling rivalry dynamic. That could really kick off action in a way that I've seen it within the masterminds, to the extent that it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh, but it makes people a lot of money at the same time, which is a cool combination. They give, honestly, in my mastermind, sometimes being British, they're so sarcastic to each other, and that's when I know that the dynamic of the group is going, and they're sarcastic. They kind of take the mick out of each other, but you know what else? It's because they actually care about each other's opinions, so they're kind of handling that in a very man-to-man way. Women are, of course, way more sophisticated when they're in the mastermind and behave better, but that dynamic's really important. And it's funny that you just mentioned that. So let's talk about the practicalities. How do we get the maximum benefit out of the mastermind? Now, we've got a list of, I think, 6 ways. I know the first one, something you've had a bit of a mixed bag of experiences with, and that's a really important one to talk about. So tell us about the first thing that we should be looking for to get the most out of a mastermind membership.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tricky dance to find a mastermind group that's the right group for you. And so the first suggestion is choose a mastermind that's aligned with your business model and your goals. And I would say, even beyond that, people who you would say are just, in essence, I suppose, a good fit in terms of ethos and morals and, kind of business style, you could call it, culture fit maybe. And yeah, I was a part of a mastermind group for, I don't know, about a year. And when I joined it, I was honored to join it because it was sort of an elite thing, a little bit. It was sold that way a little bit. And, a small group, and it was expensive. Um, but when I joined, and as I was a new kid on the block, I was a new person joining an existing mastermind group, which was sort of an awkward vibe. But what I realized after a few months, or I don't know, 6 months or something like that, was actually, as it happens, everyone in the group was sort of in, well, they certainly weren't in e-commerce. They were more life coaches, authors, people who were, they were into making money online and that kind of stuff. But the real intensity of the technical competencies were very, very different. And so, they'd have topics that were okay of interest to me. Like, okay, I could hear about whatever. But frequently would find myself saying, this is not a fit. These aren't my people. This isn't my group. I'm like in the wrong class. I showed up to the wrong class in college or whatever. And like, I should be in the social studies department, not in the chemistry department or something. And so for me, I think it's a really important thing is to choose the right group. And again, it's not just vocational competency, but there are things like, is everyone's goal in your group to have a Lamborghini? And are they bros, basically, in the common vernacular, who are just internet, make a bunch of money people? That's not my vibe. Those aren't my people. And so I think it's important to find, kind of the right group to associate yourself with as sort of a first step.
Yeah, really important. I mean, I guess well, the upsides of what I do, because it's so narrow. I mean, just a private labelers on Amazon, and I defined a sort of minimum turnover, which is, by the way, critical. It's one thing to have a Facebook group of 10,000 people, as there are quite a few out there who quotes sell on Amazon or allegedly do, and it's quite another to have people who are running the same business model, private label or replans or whatever it may be, and are actually doing some serious numbers and are actually committed. And yeah, by the way, I've tried running both. I've tried running Mastermind for newbies and people who are brand new, and there's nothing wrong with being new to anything. But the majority of people didn't take action. A few did, and those are the people who are going to go on and succeed, and good for them. So there's nothing intrinsically bad or good about the differences, but there's the continuity and the commitment level for people who are already established has been completely different. So my learning from that is, both as a mastermind runner, but more importantly as a member, that if you want that continuity and continuous value exchange, you need to find other people who are very committed to what they're doing, and that's really important. And I think revenue is an extremely crude yardstick for that, but it does help as a way of looking at it. But the other thing is, industry, as you say, when the needs for a technical e-commerce person are so, it's such a technical industry that it's really important to have that, I think.
And what else is important, do you think?
Well, I do think that this is a piece where we could actually be better. I think what we're really, really good at in the 10K Collective is the technical help and the bonding and the trust. One of the ways that we could be better is to clarify goals, and that's easier for a coach. And maybe in the end, you need a coach to hold you accountable. This kind of happens a bit more organically, because if one person succeeds, other people tend to want to copy them, which is really helpful. We've talked about that dynamic before. But I think one way that a facilitator of a mastermind can help, if they do it well, and this is something I'm working on, is to kind of keep a scoreboard and kind of encourage that gentle, not exactly competition, but that peer-to-peer awareness, and the fact that we're all here to grow, and to hold people accountable to that group purpose of we're here for growth. So we don't want stagnation. We don't want people saying, for the same 3 months in a row, oh, I'm thinking of doing X. And one of my mastermind members, this is a sign of health in the group, I think, did a couple of months ago say to somebody, look, you've been saying this for 3 months, more or less fairly directly, and I think it's important that we grow. And I said, yeah, I have to agree. So managing that is a subtle but important art as well.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, good. What else? How else do we optimize or maximize the participation in a mastermind?
Well, I think the third way, is the vague way of putting it, is to get inspired. But I think more precisely, you should be observing what works, and then considering whether it might work for you and your business. And again, talking about having the right peer group, if you've got somebody who's doing $10 million a year on Amazon, and you try copying it, if you're doing $500,000 a year, that will not be a good idea. So there are certain, or at least you could aspire to that in 2 or 3 years, which is an excellent aspiration to have, so it has use. But in the end, copying, I think there's that piece is very good for inspiration, but actually what's going to move you is copying the piece of the puzzle that the person who's in the next rung has
Mm-hmm.
got.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really, the clean way of putting it is not just being inspired, but actually finding copyable models or copyable
Yeah.
methods that you can implement.
No, I love that. I totally agree with that. And I think it's part of the mastermind experience that I've been a part of is um, you get inspired, but because what you learn about the people in the mastermind is you see strengths in them in areas that you have weakness. And all of us have a whole set of strengths and weaknesses that we bring to our own party. And when you're in a mastermind, you can observe other people crushing it or failing sometimes. And you say to yourself, what is their weakness? What is their strength? And I think that type of inspiration to me is really powerful because you get to see insight into someone else's uh, technical skill or attitude or behavior that leads to their success. Um, and so to me, that's part of the power of being in a small group mastermind. I think the thing that you mentioned a moment ago about the goals and having goals, some masterminds can be real, I don't know, slimy, or like if you're in a mastermind and there's a person who goal drops, like, oh, I'm trying to hire my 43rd person, or oh, we're trying to pass 10 million. That always feels to me very like gross. Like it's a status. It's projecting status. It's trying to establish status in a group. And that masterminds can be a downside for that if there's a member who's not socially conscious of what they're doing and who don't realize the power of their words negatively. And so but the upside of it is if people are in integrity saying, I've got this goal I'm trying to reach. What I found that happens is I'll say that, and then I'll ask people for their advice. And then I go about my merry way and literally live my life and do my work. And then I forget about that short-term challenge or problem or whatever. And then somebody will ask me about it like 4 months later or 6 months later. Hey, how's it going with that thing? And I'll be like, oh yeah, that was a problem. And sometimes they ask me and I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't done anything. I have taken no action. I've not fixed the problem. I'm ignoring it. And other times I'll be like, oh yeah, that was fixed. What it does is it slows down your goal setting and pacing, and it gives you an external reference where people will come back and say, how did you do? And it's really, really helpful that way. So anyway, all that to say on the goal setting piece, I think there's nuance there. It's
There
not
is
as
nuance.
clear as like
What I
with a
would
coach.
say is, from experience, and I'm sure that I could manage this more, but the difference between a coach and a mastermind is very interesting because I
Yeah.
think a coach is probably a better mechanism for holding yourself accountable in
Yeah.
a very direct way. What I think happens indirectly, though, in a mastermind is organically waves go through the group if you're established for long enough that people will try this thing, and after 6 months to get some results, and sometimes it takes 6 months to get, if it's SEO or something, sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
takes a while, or influencer marketing and complex things that take building relationships and building, and in the Amazon space, by the way, these are shocking concepts for anything to take more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
the grown-up people are actually trying to make longer term plays. And what happens, I've found, is that people will go, oh, that's really interesting. That's been working really well. And then people will start copying it, and then other people will start copying it. So, for example, SEO for your own website off Amazon has been a wave that's kind of swept through one of the masterminds that run that like 4 or 5 out of whatever 12 people have started doing that now, and it becomes an organic point of
Mm-hmm.
focus.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's certain things that affect entire industries, like trying to export from the UK to Europe
Mm-hmm.
is been a horrendous problem for the whole of 2021 so far, and is gradually going from horrendous to just poor or bad, and
Yeah.
that's been a real focus organically. So to some extent,
I like that.
you can't help ending
It's
up with some of the same focuses in the
it's
group.
almost like herd goals. Like, oh,
Goals, exactly.
we're all moving to Walmart. Are you coming? Like,
Yeah.
oh, we're all launching our text messaging marketing. Are you coming? Like, it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting that way. And it's not like, hey, you have to have this done by next Tuesday. It's just like, hey, here's what everybody's doing.
Yeah, but and by the way, the difference between that and following podcasts or massive Facebook groups or social media generally or whatever is it's not being led by some marketer trying to sell some cool
Mhm.
fad.
Right.
What we're seeing is kind of a slower burn, but
Mhm.
real insider track on the
Like it
results, and
bubbles
I
up.
think that's different.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest values is that I normally say to the mastermind now, look, you guys are like 3 to 6 months ahead of the market, which in the Amazon world is fast.
Yeah.
It is a lot. That's like
Mhm.
2 years in the normal world, maybe. So yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say just quickly about the skill set thing you mentioned is if the mastermind convener is doing their job well, they'll interview everyone before they come in and they'll try and audit the skill set. So
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
person's amazing at marketing. They got 20 years of branding experience. This person's got
Yeah.
a mechanical engineering degree. And then you can sort of call people out when you're having a discussion about product dev. Say, yeah, what do you think? So and so, you've got a mechanical engineering degree. What do you do in your day job?
Yeah.
Well, I did this, and then you can pull the value out that's in there already.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So any other way to maximize benefit? I think you've got a big one. You
Yeah.
like a big concept. Share with
Yeah,
us this one.
I really think that the core of a mastermind is the hot seat for each person, whether it's
Okay.
each week or each month or whatever, but certainly very regularly, and then group, articulating. And even this is a challenge in itself, is a meta challenge to articulate your problems cleanly and concisely and with good analysis of what the problem is. And sometimes people aren't very good at that, and therefore the problem becomes, how do I articulate my problems? But I find that the more experienced and quality entrepreneurs are clear about the problems. They've tried some solutions and they just want to either reality check what they're thinking of, or they've just run out of answers and they just articulate the problem and then people brainstorm what they've done. And that is where the core value is in the mastermind. I think this is just the super valuable piece at the heart of our work.
That hot seat idea. Now you've
Yeah.
done this mastermind thing for a long time. They're local, and your mastermind's interesting to me because it's local people in London that you do a local meetup, right? I mean, COVID,
Not
notwithstanding COVID type issues, but
not really
prior to,
local.
well, explain
Even
it to us then
yeah,
more.
yeah. I
'Cause
was going to say.
it's
I
not
mean,
virtual so much, but
no, it's not virtual. Well, it is virtual for the last year. And
yeah.
so,
Okay.
let's take three parts. I
Pre-COVID,
mean,
yeah,
past, present, future. So the past pre-COVID was that we met in London, but it
yeah.
wasn't just local. People travelled a long way to join it because
Okay.
they found it valuable. There's a lady who flew in from Barcelona. There's a guy who comes in from somewhere in the Netherlands. There are various people that came from the north of England, so several hundred miles, which in the UK is a long
Sure.
way. Like in
Okay.
California,
Good
that's
point.
popping up for breakfast.
Yeah.
What's happened online is obviously that's been a lot easier for people who are coming internationally. What we're going to do going forward, I think, and this could be a blend that a lot of people will find themselves in, is a mixture of online and then
Mhm.
meeting regularly, but not necessarily monthly,
Yeah.
because I think hotel prices are going to go sky high,
Yeah.
travel costs are going up, and you still got that lingering COVID uncertainty hanging
Yeah.
over everything. So
Okay, so my question in that regard was, you do this like in that context then with this hot seat idea.
yeah.
So talk to us a little bit more about like what works in the hot seat dynamic, what's weird or doesn't work, like how do you maximize the
You're
opportunity to be that
asking me to
person in the
review.
hot seat, and how do
Yeah.
you be a good contributor to help someone who is in the hot seat?
Great. Well, without revealing all of our secret sauce, but yeah,
Sure.
joking apart,
Yeah.
the most important thing is clarity. If you are asking for help with a problem, the most important thing is to come having clarified the problem in simple terms and come prepared if you can. And a lot of my guys come prepared with spreadsheets and data, because it's a very data driven space, e-commerce, which is, by the way, why, and man, I've been in spaces with, life coaches and coaches, and nothing wrong with that, but that's
Yeah.
such a different world.
Right.
It's almost got no value, some of the stuff. But anyway, so in the e-commerce world, it's data driven, and so they come with data. But here's what I would say: don't give me the labor pains, just give me the baby, as a business coach mine used to say, Dan Bradbury.
What does that mean?
So means
how do
I
you
don't need
interpret
to
that?
hear the last a 10-minute. If you've got a 30-minute slot to share in,
Yeah.
and that would be generous but possible, then don't give me 10 minutes explaining the
Mhm.
history of how you got here. And people who are very analytical minded, and many of us in e-commerce have a very poor habit of giving the exact history of everything. And what
Mhm.
you need to give is a 30 to 1 minute executive summary of the problem, then shut up and wait for intelligent people to say, in order to answer that question, I want to do A, B, and C. And then you can say, glad you asked that, click, open your
Mhm.
laptop,
Mhm.
and here's the data. And then shut up again and listen for the response. That's the most important thing I can say. I've seen people
Yeah.
on both ends of that equation, and the people who ramble on for ages about their problem, I will normally intervene gently after a few minutes and say, okay,
Yeah.
so if you're looking for help with a problem, may I suggest that you summarize it in 2 or 3 simple sentences? So again,
That's
that's
a
where the art of a facilitator comes in.
powerful art of facilitation. So then flip it around though. So have you seen people who excel at speaking into people's life or business? What stands out in terms of being an amazing like helper to
I
the
can totally
person?
speak to that. I would
Yeah.
say the first thing to avoid the classic error is, if you're new to the mastermind, you feel this terrible, I've been there, you feel this terrible urge to contribute, to show you're
Yeah.
worth something. And I would just say, I get it, but just try and resist the urge to speak for the sake of it. If you are talking about product development and you're lousy at product development,
Hmm.
just say, you could say like, I suppose I experienced a similar problem, so I'd be very interested to hear the answer. So you can acknowledge the fact you're there.
Yeah.
But then, if you don't know much about an area, that's okay. It's cool. I mean,
So,
the value of
mhm.
listening is also good because there may be something that comes up later in the meeting, or in the Facebook group, and a sort of continuation of the discussions, where you can really contribute. So that's the most important thing. And then the other thing is, again, try to be sort of laser targeted with your answers insofar as you can in a short space. It's
Mhm.
not like you're becoming part of their company and can spend all day on a problem.
Yeah.
But if they've given you an overview and you need more information to give an answer, just ask them for the information. If they don't have it, then that's the next thing they need. Okay, go gather this information. That in itself is very valuable.
Mhm.
So
I
those are the
love
two
it.
things.
Yeah, so I guess so to speak wisely and to sound like the sage or the guru speaking into people's business, pick your shots carefully. Don't shoot it. Don't shoot at everything. To just
Yeah.
really speak into your own real strengths and do it succinctly. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and
sage
also
advice.
don't diagnosis without prescription is
Yeah.
malpractice. So don't, sorry, prescription without diagnosis. So in other words, if you need more information to tell people good advice, then
Hmm.
say that. And if
Yeah.
they don't have the information to hand,
Yeah.
that could be an ongoing discussion through the Facebook group, which we often use. The other thing is, don't worry about trying to be a sage. Stop trying to
Hmm.
appear like a guru with your peers.
Okay,
Just
good
be a
point.
peer. Do you know
Forget
what I
that.
mean? It's just
Yeah.
like relax and just accept that you're there to get value from people and
Yeah.
contribute value, but you don't have to appear like some expert. That's not why you're there, and you relax about that. And the earlier you relax about that, the more value you bring, ironically,
Good
in my
point.
experience.
Good point. This is such an interesting group dynamic because all these little weird things come into our minds, status and the
Yeah,
group, who, like respect and all those things
yeah,
are a real part. Okay, so let's talk about a few other little, a couple different ways to maximize benefit of a mastermind. We'd already talked about accountability. I think of different kinds and how people can come back and circle back to the idea of what you talked about and then ask you about it. I think there's wisdom in that. Um, Final other ideas? Anything else that stands out to you?
yeah. I think one of the things that people get obsessed about is setting goals for the future and then working towards them, and so we should. But one of the massive values, especially for an owner operator of a business who's in it all day, is to take out one day a month or half a day a month or whatever it is, and just step back from that and reflect on experience. Because here's the thing, that wisdom is underrated in life. Like intelligence, being quick, being clever, is overrated in the sort of I think the internet marketing driven space, shall we say, including e-commerce. And here's the thing, a lot of business truths and business models turn out to be very, very lasting. And they say the following. I think they say wisdom comes from experience, experience comes from bad judgment. So I think the missing piece from that saying is, I think wisdom comes from reflecting on experience. And I
Yeah.
think in a mastermind can be really powerful for that, particularly if you're reflecting on, should we say, instead of wins, you have your learnings, i.e., you spent $100,000 on some product and it all
Hmm.
went down the pan and some horrible things happen, or you got your account suspended, as somebody did just the other week in our mastermind. Reflecting on how that happened so the other people don't have to go through that pain
Yep.
is super valuable for the other members. And it's a kind of not exactly business therapy for you, but you certainly need to process it and learn the learnings from tough lessons sometimes.
Man, that is such sage advice, honestly, because all of us, I think, pack our well, the doers amongst us, those that are, you call yourself a workaholic or just, kind of a task oriented or whatever. We tend to fill our lives with next steps, next lists, next to dos, things that are undone. And the wisdom to have a structured, systematic way to slow down, have to explain yourself to others, and actually explain what happened, particularly if it's a problem or challenge, like here's how it broke.
Yeah,
That's really valuable time. I mean, honestly, you probably
yeah,
will learn more and grow more in the moments in which you're not doing your next thing, you're reflecting on your last thing,
yeah.
and gaining insight and wisdom. It's just really important. And I never really thought about a mastermind prompting that, but you're right, they totally do.
I mean, the thing is, to your point earlier as well, there are two really powerful things that happen. One is when you really get knocked about by life. They say experience is the best teacher, and best in the sense of most honest, and you learn the most, yes, but
Hmm.
super painful sometimes. And
Yeah.
like I remember the mastermind, a while ago had was about a $2 million a year account suspended for 14 days. That was a
Yeah.
horrendous experience, but he came back and talked it through. And
Yeah.
he's not the first person I've worked with who's had an account suspension, and you need to learn the lessons. And it's so important to process that and to learn the lessons because you paid the price, so you might as well
Yeah.
learn the lesson. And sometimes people, to bury your head in the sand about it is sometimes tempting because it's so painful, and that's not the way to learn and grow. And then for the other people in the mastermind grow. But to your point earlier, which you made, which is a really great insight, of course, that's a huge bonding experience because everyone thinks there that for the grace of God go I. And we're on the same boat, the same vulnerability. And that's a huge bonding thing as well. And it becomes then, this is the thing that we talked about, and this is the thing that's emerging for me that I hadn't consciously articulated, that the subtle sort of group dynamics, which are more emotional. And as you said, there's some status, there's a respect need, that sort of it's a subtle thing to get to work. It's much more subtle than a
Yeah.
coachee kind of relationship, which is
Right.
more straightforward. I mean, there are dynamics there, of course, but
Yeah.
but in the end, if you get it right, then you have a wonderful combination of a bonded group of people who feed each other wisdom, are a sounding board, and also a sort of processing board as well. And
Yeah.
it all goes together in the end. It all blends in together.
Ah, I love it, man. This has just been a fantastic conversation. Hopefully, everyone's gotten as much benefit out of it as I personally have, because it's made me think a lot about masterminds I've been a part of and also ones we're running currently, and how to really try to set them up for optimal outcomes for the participants. And so, thank you. I mean, your insights on this stuff is really, really meaningful and sage advice on all this stuff. You can tell you've been doing it for a long time and thought about it and had good insights in it. So, great conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. If it helps, I'm going to just quickly summarize the points we've talked about today. I think, first of all, what is a mastermind? I hope we've talked about that. I think it's there's nothing wrong with joining a big group. That can be extremely powerful. I'm a member of one myself right now for not e-commerce strictly, but for the coaching business. And that's really powerful. And it's group coaching, and that is not a mastermind. Neither is a small group, as you said, where we're not really sharing openly. And yeah, I think the best ways to use it would be, first of all, make sure you choose a mastermind aligned with your needs. You've had some pretty unfortunate experiences there, and you're not the only person. Like some of my clients come to me with a similar experience. Getting the goals out is a subtle one, but I think that's something that I need to work on with my mastermind. But being inspired by and emulating successful people really works, I think, quite organically. And that's just important to keep showing up. If you join a mastermind, you don't show up, by the way. I don't think this magic stuff's going to happen. And then the big one, the hot seat. And then finally, as part of that, but overall, reflecting and learning from experience. Those are the ways I would use a mastermind that I've seen really benefit the members. I mean, a lot. I mean, it's a very powerful thing, and it's a very organic thing as well. It's whenever I try and market my masterminds, it's taken me ages to try and articulate the value because I see great stuff happening and I can feel the vibe, but to try and put that in
Yeah.
a bottle and to sell that is a bit like trying to market a beer or something. You kind of have to taste it,
Yeah.
and that's what I would say is if you haven't been a part of a really good mastermind before, join one, and that's the only way you're really going to know whether it's for you, I think.
Yeah. No, I love that. Well, and obviously we run these, so let's leave everyone with just insight into like follow up next steps. If people want to know more about your mastermind program, how do they tap into that, learn about it? What would they do to connect with you to go forward?
Well, they go to theamazonmastermind.com. Now, caveat is that, to my shame, I haven't really dealt with updating the website for the COVID situation because it seemed so
Okay.
uncertain. I just left it. So
Yeah.
this explains how things used to work in a physical face-to-face meeting context.
Yeah.
And what I would say to anyone is that it's actually mostly online now, with probably 3, maximum 4 meetings a year going forward. So don't let that be a barrier if you don't want to travel to London monthly. But apart from that, the basic idea is the same. The hot seat's the center of it. All the things we articulated today are what do we try and maintain that culture and grow it. And the only thing to add to that is that we are bringing in experts such as we had with yourself, Jason, to lead focus sessions on particular areas. But again,
Yeah.
that's not going to be a masterclass teaching from the front. It's more a
Mhm.
question of going business by business and being very more of a deep dive. And so
Yeah.
even that is a slightly different take.
Fantastic. Love it. And then I'm embarrassed to say that I don't have sales pages or landing pages for either of the two small group masterminds that we run currently. And so, so sorry, there's no sales page. One is for, we call our CEO small group, and it's all e-commerce CEOs, coaching clients in particular, but then people beyond that. And so you could hit us up on winningonshopify.com and hit our contact page if you'd like more information. And then the other group that we're actively building right now is for people who are using the replens sourcing model for Amazon selling. And so we're putting together a replens mastermind. And if you'd like information or an application for that one, you can again hit us up on winningonshopify.com on the contact form, or Facebook message me, or reach out to me however you can get a hold of me. Facebook Messenger is a fine way, and I'll give you information about those groups.
By the way, I think it's great to not have a sales page. I'm considering taking mine down for the moment, because actually quality, not quantity, is what matters in a mastermind. I mean, sometimes referrals and mentioning it on a podcast and stuff can be a lot better. So nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I think your CEO small group sounds like it's grown very organically out of your coaching. And I really trust things that organically grow. When you get to the point where you go, it's crazy not to do this, that's a good sign. So I think that sounds really great. And I know your Replens Mastermind, I was just looking on that. Obviously, I popped in there to talk about cash conversion cycles and cash flow. And I could see from some of the comments that there's a big appetite for the mastermind model in there. So I think that's going to, again, because it comes from the ground roots up, I think that's really going to be a powerful thing, because people are really up for it and they're not being sold into it. You just mentioned it and they went, yes, I want that.
Yeah, we did a poll and we asked them how we could serve them after the 30-day challenge, which we're running right now. And the top 2 comments were more access to the videos for longer, which is not uncommon, and then Mastermind, which was the second best vote, in the poll. And so it was cool to see people's enthusiasm for the idea, and so hopefully they've appreciated this conversation as well today. So
yeah, I hope so. I hope they're inspired to go and join you, because obviously, I'm a passionate believer in this thing. It's quite a subtle art. I hope I put across that you can't just join somebody who doesn't know anything about an industry or just kind of slaps it together. It has to be somebody who cares about it. And obviously you and Kyle have got, fantastic coaching background, and I think you're, creating some lovely masterminds now.
Well, importantly though, just to clarify, the Replens Mastermind group is being led by Kate Chaddock and Danny Stock, and Kyle will be the third wingman in that leadership team. So I'm just helping with some of the marketing and stuff, which is why there's no landing page. but they will be the subject matter experts to lead that group forward, and they are legitimate, amazing Amazon sellers and replens.
Yeah. Sources. So that's great. So you're going to have people who are going to running it that are really industry experts. But if you're helping with the marketing, I guess I better leave you to create that landing page.
Sorry, hold me accountable. No doubt. Well, we'll get there. Awesome, man. Well, wonderful conversation. Thanks again, and appreciate everyone listening with us live in the moment. If you're watching this by replay, feel free to leave a comment underneath the video wherever you're watching it, and we'll be sure to scour those sources for questions and try to answer. So there you go.
Excellent. And I've got to just say, and I want this live on the podcast, that somebody has just commented, I'm inspired for the Replens Mastermind. Pick me, pick me. So you've definitely got some people that want to join you. And that's fantastic. I think you should be inspired. Honestly, if you have to just do one thing, even before hiring a coach, if I may dare say so, I just think a mastermind is such an amazing thing if it's well run, that you cannot fail but to really benefit from it. So I'm with Napoleon Hill on this one. It really can be a life-changing thing if you get the right one.
Absolutely right. All right, man. With that said, thanks everybody for listening. If you've enjoyed the podcast, be sure to give us a like or subscription or whatever can happen on the podcast listener player of your choice, Spotify or Apple or whatever it is. We would love your feedback. That's helpful for the show. And with that, we'll end it here. And we're done. Okay, cool.
Excellent.
All right. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us live. I guess we're good to go. Any other comments for the good of the order there, sir?
Kimberly, join the Replens Mastermind, dude. I mean, this is it's definitely the way to go. I mean, you've got the coaching from the experts. Now's the time to
the applications are coming in. A lot of applications are coming in. We did it by application only, and so we're working through that this week. So it'll be exciting to see how the next steps come together. Okay,
definitely
all right.
Worth it. Yeah,
good times, man. Have a wonderful evening there in London. And
Thanks.
as always, it's an honor. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.